Alright, let's try to brainstorm this problem, because we really don't want to get into midnight with this thing still live and kicking in the community when it comes to next expansion's Mythic Plus. This is something that already existed and was already a problem, but it has kicked into overgear because previously this was not something that was seen by the majority of the player base, since right now, for example, it only started being visible for players doing Mythic Plus 17 or so key level or higher, so we are still talking about a very small part of the player base. But since Legion Remix came out, it added, of course, Mythic Plus as well. There is some achievements tied to doing Mythic Plus in there for your transmogs, and many players who would normally not get that high in terms of Mythic Plus tryharding in retail have been going into Mythic Plus in Legion Remix, and they have gotten to see this behavior even in Mythic Plus in Legion Remix, which is the whole deal around the tipping, the whole deal around essentially selling your key in Mythic Plus. Now, for the unawares, this started with what was a very good QOL from Blizzard in this expansion, which was the resilient feature. So if you have all keys completed at a plus 20 level, then your plus 20 you try to do will no longer deplete. You can just fail all the plus 20s you want, they want to go down to 19. That wasn't supposed to help you push keys, of course, because if you time 20s, what you want to do next is a 21. But you only have resilient 20. So if you fail the 21 will go down to 20, right? What was supposed to help you with was with what is called homework key. The homework keys were the keys you had to, of course, bring back up to a level you could then try to earn score from. They are called homework because they are, of course, busy, tedious work you have to do before you get to the good stuff. And there was the risk, very often would happen, that you wanted to do a 21. The 21 fails. It goes back to a 20, you try the 20 and you even fail the 20. So now the key is down to a 19. So you have to time the 19 and then time the 20 to then hope to get the 21 you haven't timed yet to try to do it. And then maybe you fail that 21 in 2 pulls, so it goes back down to a 20 and you have to try to do it again, right? So the resilient feature was meant to try to shave off some time for groups at high key level when they were bringing up their keys up to a level where they could earn score from. However, what this gained a lot more traction in was this very simple thought that some players had. Hold on a second, if I have resilient 20, so my 20 keys will never go down to 19. There are tons of players who are stuck right now at plus 18 or are stuck at plus 19, and they are trying to do a plus 20, to time a plus 20 for score. So when I'm looking for a pug to do my homework key, so a key that I'm not earning score from, I just want this key to go back up to 21 for me to then try for real. There are players who are way more interested in timing this key than I am, because to me it's a meaningless homework key where I gain no score from. For plenty of other players, that is a very important key that they can get score from. So they came up with the idea, what if I sell this for gold? There's going to be tons of applicants desperate to get into this key. Maybe they are just desperate enough to spend gold to get into this key. After all, this is not a normal Mythic Plus key. It's not that you enter Priory, you do the first mega pull, you wipe in 30 seconds and then you just leave, the group disbands because it's over. It's a resilient key. So you can guarantee you can stay there for 2, 3, 5, 10 different tries until you manage to time this key. And turns out there are plenty of players desperate enough for timing this level of key that they are willing to pay 2, 3, 500,000 gold to enter one of these keys at the moment right now, title level range keys. So in this example, actually a plus 20 key would cost you around 2 million gold to be able to enter that key. So once players realized they could do that, it started becoming a trickle-down effect. The trickle-down effect of the guy who had 20 resilient selling his 20s to the guy who only had 19 keys That guy was like, hold on a second, I had to pay to time this 20, so let me just sell my 19s to a bunch of people. So those people who only had 18s and had to buy the 19s went, hold on a second, I had to buy this 19, let me sell my 18. So the guy with the 17s who had to buy the 18s went, hold on a second, let me sell my 17s now. So it created this trickle-down effect that went lower and lower in players starting to sell their keys. Now, this is of course outlawed. It's illegal, it's forbidden. Players have realized this, they know this very well. They started by outright asking for gold, which is illegal. So they started pretending like they weren't asking for gold by asking for tips. Of course, it's not mandatory, we're not exchanging money for this transaction, it's only voluntary. You can only tip voluntarily. But that was also way too much on the nose. So now they have moved to outright either saying plus 19 note or plus 19 resilient. At this point, resilient, just mentioning it's resilient is practically the telltale sign that you're asking for gold, or outright you're simply typing plus 19 note. They used to put they wanted tips in the note, but at this point it has become so obvious they can simply type note in the title without even putting a note itself, and it's obvious what they are asking for, which is, and as you can see yourself for sure, if you are in Legion Remix, this has bled into Remix as well. You don't need to have resilient keys in there, you simply need to have a strong enough character that can near solo pretty much plus 30 keys to basically sell your keys, sell the plus 30 for the achievement to other players, of course pretending you are asking only for tips. Now, as we mentioned, this is against the ToS, this is not allowed. Selling in-game items and services such as carries or boosting for real money is not allowed. However, it doesn't just stop there. The RMT, so the actual money trading, has been an obvious outlawed thing for a while, but also offering boosting, matchmaking, escrow or non-traditional services, including the ones offered for gold, are also prohibited. In particular, the relevant one here for dungeons is that if you want to advertise the sale, or even just like it would work in this case, the assistance in raiding and dungeons for gold, just like asking for tips, for example, or asking for, offering help for a key in exchange for tips, is still allowed, but with the thing Blizzard added when they purged all of this advertising, which was the trade services chat channel. This page was also actually edited a few months ago because of this popularity of this system in Mythic Plus. It says, just to make it even clearer, this includes any and all references to tips and tipping or other synonyms of these words. So they even made sure to be as clear as possible to the fact that this kind of cheeky system to try to pretend like you're not trying to sell something for gold in the looking for group tool, they made it even clearer. Doesn't matter if you change the word tip and tips required, tips wanted or tips welcome to note, it is still not allowed. Some players are starting to crash out from this excess of tipping. There have been more and more complaints recently about players having their experience cut short when they were trying to, climb in Mythic Plus because they got to 17 or to 18 and essentially 80% of all the keys they found were asking for tips or had a note next to the title wanting gold, because as mentioned, it has become a trickle-down effect. You are stuck at 17, so you buy 18s yourself. Once you got 18s yourself, you start selling your 17 resilient to make gold so you can buy 19s. Once you have bought 19s, you can start selling your 18 resilient as you get gold to buy your 20s, etc, etc. So it's a perfect moment to complain about this now, because with the release of Legion Remix, as mentioned, way more of the player base is getting to see this issue, since otherwise it would have just been limited to a very small part of the player base in high-level keys in retail, and we have to think about a solution for this problem for the next expansion, because we really don't want to get into another season of Mythic Plus with this issue persisting. Obviously, the simplest solution would be Blizzard dishing out so many perma-bans to everyone caught selling these services for gold by asking for tips or for the note in the looking for group tool, that everyone just stops doing it in the next expansion, but it seems unlikely. The other simplest solution, which would be very unfortunate to be fair, was for Blizzard to say, see, this is your fault. Look at what you made me do. I didn't want to do this. Resilient was a tool for you to shave some time to do your homework keys. You completely abused it. We don't really have the means to just detect and then ban players who use this system. So we just remove it. We just get rid entirely of the resilient feature next expansion, so we stop seeing these players selling keys for gold. That would also be a guarantee of success, of course, if you got rid of it. It would of course be unfortunate, because there are other good reasons to keep the resilient key system in the game. I think perhaps the best way to solve this, which is something that players thought this system was going to be before it was even out, was adding, or rather extend by one level how resilient works. So essentially timing all 15s gets you resilient 16. So you get to try again the keys you want to time. And then once you have all 16s timed, you get resilient 17. So now you get to try the keys you want to time for score again and again and again. This would mostly remove the need for players to buy, or rather the desire of players to sell their resilient keys, because right now someone with resilient 20 trying to time 21s in his free time can sell his resilient 20 to the desperate 19 key players trying to time a 24 score. However, with this change, this player with all 19s done would have resilient 20. So he would have no need to go and buy a resilient 20 key from someone else to try to get score, because he would have his own. That, I think, would also help a lot to completely kill this entire sales system in the looking for group tool, to simply give players what they want, which is a way to try the keys they want to do for score again and again, without having to join a group of strangers for one pool, wipe the pool, disband the group, and have to find some other group to try again. I think this was a very big hint from the player base in what they want to do. Blizzard could use this as a hint, even though what it has generated is bad, because it has generated, of course, essentially a sales system of Mythic Plus title range keys with this. However, it did show Blizzard something. It showed players are willing to even spend millions of gold to be able to stick with a group and try multiple times, upwards of multiple hours of wiping in a single key, if that's the key that gives them a score. So possibly these players have even spent more time than they would have. They have spent more time than they would have in Mythic Plus, because they were able to stick in a single key trying over and over. Imagine someone who finally gets or finally buys a resilient plus 20, because he needs 20 priory and for score, so he sits in that key for like 3 hours trying to time it. They failed the key like 15 times over and over 3 hours. Now imagine how much more time it would have taken for a different guy to find 15 different priority keys at plus 20, join them, fail them, leave, and look for a different one, a completely different group with a different plus 20 priority, join, first pool, fail, leave, find different group, this time wipe on the second boss, leave, join different group. Instead, if you simply had that key on resilient, he could have just tried it over and over by himself from his own key, for example, It feels like with this possible solution, if this player who had timed 19s, instead of having resilient 19, had resilient 20, would have had an easier time simply spending his time in Mythic Plus rather than spending his time in the looking for group tool trying to find a group. I feel like this would be the more sensible solution to put an end, to put a stop to this out of control scammy sale antics currently going on in the looking for group tool when it comes to Mythic Plus. I still think we can all think the newly added resilient system is good for Mythic Plus, but we need some tweaks, we need some adjustments by the time the next expansion comes out to deal with what is going down right now with the sale of these keys. So this is what we have for thoughts for this Sunday in preparation for the next expansion, for the release of the beta of Midnight at this point, about 8 days away from now. Let's hope to see some focus given by Blizzard to this problem and not let it go unchecked and unchallenged into the next expansion. So for today, we are on the positive side of things on this weekend. We're gonna see what Blizzard will do, but for now we can leave each other on this. We can start the goodbyes, of course, by thanking everyone for having watched the video, by thanking, of course, everyone else who have been supporting completely for free, by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, true. I'm not sure what is the psychological explanation for this, but rain in the background feels very relaxing.